everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host, and I'm so glad that you're here. Today on the podcast, I chat with Craig Dehut, who is co-founder of Appian Media. Appian Media produces documentaries and videos in Jerusalem and Israel as they travel around and make the Bible come to life. You will learn so much by these videos, and you will love them. I have loved all of them so far that I've watched. The word of the week this week.
It's the word of the week.
Is talents. One of the things that Craig talks about is how each of us should use the talents that we have to the glory of God. We should use our talents. That's why we've been given them, to help others, to encourage people, and to do what God's called us to do. We're not going to all have the same talents. I've talked about this before. I could learn to sing. I could take singing lessons. I could get on a stage, but I don't have a gift or a talent to do that. I could try hard, but it's not something that I am talented in. We all have different gifts. We all have different talents. And I hope that after listening to him, you will see the incredible things that even you can do with the talents that you have. Thanks for being here. Have a great day.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I do all my own editing, so this is like very chill.
Yeah.
I like everything, which I know you're a professional. I'm not a professional.
I pretend to be a professional. Yeah.
Well, so I can change anything or take anything out that needs to be taken out. But I binge watched Following the Messiah. I watched one and then I thought, I'm just going to watch them all. I haven't been to Israel. My husband's been to Israel. So everything that I saw, I asked, did you go see that? Did you go see this? Like, there's a lot of things that he didn't get to see when he went on his trip. They didn't go to Bethlehem. He said they didn't even talk about it. So all of that was very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
But I love what y'all are doing. And it's amazing to me that it's free. I mean, that's a lot of work. And I know that, you have gotten funded and people donate and help with that, but that's a lot of money too, probably, to be able to.
It is. And that, I think it's just a testament to the generosity of people.
Yeah.
We're crowdfunded. We're a nonprofit. So individuals donate because they want to see more of it. So
yeah.
It's
well, I love it. I think it's great. For people like me who I probably won't ever get over there. And there are lots of people that will never get over there. It's very interesting for me to see. And I love how, you read at the beginning of the episode, y'all would read from the Bible or talk about, okay, this is what happened here. And then you would go to that place, and it helps kind of see it. You've read it 100 times in the Bible, but it helps to see exactly what, they were talking about. And so
that's right.
Tell me, I want to know why you started this company and like, what was your purpose behind doing all of this?
Sure. So back in 2015, so I live in the Indianapolis area, and I still work as a freelance video producer.
Yeah.
And a fellow creative of mine, Stuart Peck, he and I were meeting for coffee and just kind of talking shop. And he was teaching a Bible class at the time for high schoolers, and I do that on occasion as well. And he was kind of bemoaning the fact that he was wanting to show these kids images or hopefully video from the Bible lands. And he was just having trouble finding something that was free because he didn't want to have to pay for it just for class. Something that was professionally produced. He and I both work in the industry. And he said, I know, that if the quality is bad, the kids especially, but most viewers aren't going to look past the wrapping.
Right.
It may be really beneficial content, but if it's not put together well, people aren't going to watch it. So it needs to be professionally produced. And then it needs to be biblically and historically accurate.
Right.
With no biases, no preconceived things. And we just got tired of giving caveats when we would present material. We'd say, hey, I want you to watch this video, but look, the first 60 seconds, he's talking about this particular denominational tradition. And we just wanted something that would just tell us what the Bible says, show us the places where it took place. And so it was Stuart actually who was like, listen, here's a crazy idea. Like, how hard could it possibly be for us to take a small group of people over there and produce it?
Yeah.
Previously, the farthest out of our country I've ever been was Montreal, Canada, which I feel like is barely crossing the border.
Right.
And we said, sure, it couldn't surely be that hard. And it was. But yeah, we were just so blessed from the beginning. We founded Appian there at the end of 2015, and actually launched a Kickstarter campaign. We used Kickstarter in that first year.
Yeah.
We asked for $40,000, which is not nearly enough to do a project like that.
Right.
But we were blessed to receive about $65,000 for that first
Wow.
trip, and became a non-for-profit that same year and took our first trip to Israel in 2016. And that was following
Wow.
Messiah. That was the first half of
Yeah.
our Following Messiah series. And since that time, we've been blessed to about every 12 to 18 months
Yeah.
pitch another project, do another fundraiser. Um, we've now gotten to a point where not only are we producing what we call our major series, like Following Messiah or Searching for a King, but we're putting out podcasts
Yeah.
and workbooks and other pieces of content throughout the year. And
That's
people keep
awesome.
asking for it, and so God willing, we'll keep creating it.
I love it. So tell me the different projects that you have. I know there's multiple, and I've watched Following the Messiah, but what are the other ones that you have, and what are they about?
Yeah. So Following Messiah was the 10 episode series about the life of Jesus. And after that, we created something called Searching for a King, which
Hmm.
is covering the first kings of what they call the United Kingdom period of Israel's history. So
Hmm.
Saul, David, Solomon,
Yeah.
before the kingdom split, right, into Israel and Judah. Um, and that's a 5 episode series. After that, we produced something called Trial and Triumph, which
Hmm.
covers Revelation 1 through 3. It's the letters to the 7 churches of Asia. And
Oh, wow.
so that's modern day Turkey. So we traveled, not only did we travel to those spots in Turkey, but we also visited people from around the country and around the world who are experiencing this similar types of challenges and blessings that we
Yeah.
read about in those churches. So we interviewed a couple prior to their time moving over to Sierra Leone. We interviewed a couple who spent some time working in Saudi Arabia, and kind of combined all of those stories together into what we call Trial and Triumph. And then I keep saying earlier this year, but it's 2025 now. In spring of 2024, we released Out of Egypt, which is a story of the Exodus. And so
Yeah.
we were able to travel to Egypt and Jordan and pick one of the proposed routes of the journey of the Israelites out of Egypt. And then we've also produced 2 children's series. We call them Lessons from the Land. And they are shorter, they're 4 or 5 minute videos, about 13 of them, covering the same parts of biblical history. So for the Following the Messiah series, we did a Lessons from the Land, the Gospels. And we say they're meant for children. I know adults watch them and enjoy them
Right.
much as well, but they're specifically designed to be watched in a Bible class.
Yeah.
You kind of start the class with that video, and then it opens up into a broader discussion. And so we've done one on the Gospels, we've done one on the Kings. We are working on one about the Exodus based on that content that we shot a couple years ago. And then, in addition to all of that, with every one of these series, we produce now printed and digital copies of
Oh, wow.
these workbooks, kind of premium workbooks that embed the videos within them. So there are QR codes that you can scan
Yeah.
in each lesson. It'll take them to a short video,
That's
um,
awesome.
and we've now been doing that for I guess this is our 9th year. So
Wow. So I know it's a lot of work and it's time consuming, but you can't be involved with the Bible and not be affected by or visiting Jerusalem. So what have you learned? Probably there's probably a lot of things. What have you
how much
learned?
time do you
Yeah,
have?
exactly. I mean, every time we read the Bible, something is different, even though
Yes.
you've read it over and over. So, but what have you learned being a part of all of this that you didn't realize before about the Bible?
Oh, yeah, there's so much. I mean, I grew up in a Christian home. My father is an evangelist, so I grew up hearing these accounts and reading the Bible myself. I became a Christian at 12 years old, so I wasn't unfamiliar with the stories, with the accounts. Uh, but being able to see them, one of the things that struck me, especially visiting Israel, was the land is actually a lot smaller than I had envisioned in my mind.
Yeah,
Israel is not a large country.
right.
In fact, I live in Indiana. You can take the country of Israel and put it inside of Indiana and have plenty of room.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so on those production trips, we were able to hit 2, 3, 4 locations in a day because everything's
Yeah.
fairly close together. And that helped me. I've never been particularly good with geography.
Mhm.
And so the Bible is full of it. The Bible is full of descriptions of places and distances and routes and areas. And so to finally be able to, at now 40 years old, kind of put those things in their proper place when I read the scripture. Okay, Jerusalem is here compared to where Bethlehem is, and
Right.
that's on this side of the Jordan because the Dead Sea is down here. And actually, just putting that all together has been helpful for me. We hope that it's helpful for our viewers as well.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think something that has just struck me with every trip, and again, there are different stories for every project that we've done, but um, these are historical accounts. These were real people, but there's something about like walking through their streets that
Hmm.
makes you realize or cement more these were real people.
Yeah.
And there are, in the biblical accounts, there's not a lot of time given to the reactions of the people.
Yeah.
It does say, they witnessed the miracles of Jesus and the people were astounded, or the people were
Yeah.
full of wonder and awe. Um, but just kind of standing there and looking around and going, look, he fed 5,000 people here
Yes.
with with just a few bread and fish, like what that would have been like.
Yeah.
And we've had moments like that every time where it's like these were real people. And
Yeah.
if I were able to put myself in that crowd and I'm being handed that piece of bread, when I go, listen, just a second ago, there were just a few of these. A small boy brought this,
Yeah.
that has really helped. And it's our goal, our mission with Appian, trying to bottle that up and share it with the
Yeah.
viewers, so that even if they can't stand in the place, they can feel like they are
Right.
and have that same reaction.
Well, you're doing that because, like I said, I've read all those stories over and over again, and I've seen The Chosen, and I've seen it played out. Like you see what it might have been like. But some of the things that y'all talk about on there are things that I think about or other people think about, that like a question I would have that I might not be able to ask anybody else, like the Sermon on the Mount. Whenever, I don't know, Jeremy, and I don't remember, was it,
Mhm.
who was the other guy?
And Barry, yeah, Barry
Barry. Okay.
Britnell.
So one of them went to the top and one of them
Yes.
went to the bottom. And you think about all those thousands of people that were there, and how could they possibly hear from the back Jesus talking? That was incredible to see how
Yes.
the sound moved. Like, I would have never thought about that. So I thought that was
Yes.
very interesting.
Yeah, that area, it's along the Sea of Galilee, and they call it now the Cove of the Sower because
Yeah.
this is where, very likely that Jesus presented the parable of the sower, right, and
Right.
the seed, and the acoustics of that space, the natural
Yes.
acoustics of that space, and it was an experiment that Barry, who regularly leads tours over there, had heard about, but had never actually done himself, and so
Yes.
to be able to do that, there was no manipulation of the volume of that audio when I
Right.
edited that together. Like that's what we
Yeah.
heard. I
That
was
was amazing
actually
to me.
I was the camera guy standing behind Barry's
Yeah.
shoulder as he was up there. And we're all kind of like, is that coming through the mic? Or is that
Yeah.
coming through the walkie-talkie? No, like we could hear Jeremy down there at the
That
shore.
was amazing.
Um, and it is a testament to little details like that
Hmm.
help you, it reinforces your faith that this was not made up.
Yeah.
It could have very easily been someone made up a story about Jesus talking to
Right.
crowds, but all you have to do is go to that place and realize there's no way they could have heard him.
Right.
But wouldn't you know, the Bible says he was there with crowds and throngs around him.
Yes.
Wouldn't you know, it's exactly the kind of place where they could have heard.
Yeah.
Um, and just innumerable instances like that, especially with the life of Jesus, where it's like there's no way someone could have fabricated a story like this.
Right. That amazed me. Like, I couldn't, because it's something I'd thought about before, but I mean, I believe the Bible, even if I can't go there and see all of that.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, y'all are doing things, you're answering questions that people have that they may never be able to ask. So thank you.
You're
So you
welcome.
were already doing videography before this started. Is that something you always wanted to do?
From a fairly early age, it certainly was not something I was very good at for many, many years. Someone let our family, I'm one of seven siblings. We were a
Oh, wow.
homeschool family,
Yeah.
and someone let our family have like an old camcorder,
Yeah.
like shooting on tape, small tape. And
Uh-huh.
we would go out in the backyard and make all kinds of ridiculous things.
That's awesome.
Thankfully, all of that has been scrubbed from the internet. You will not find it. But we had such a blast,
Yeah.
and most of us were doing it just for fun. But it was probably I was probably 13 or 14
Yeah.
where I thought, I think I could make a living of this. I love telling
Yeah.
stories. I like technology and computers. I really enjoyed crafting stories through video.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the first time I got paid, which was anyway, they had so much faith in me to pay me something like this. I think the first time I got paid for a video project, I was 16 or 17 years old. Um, and for someone to put that kind of trust in a
Right.
teenager who really didn't know what he was doing. Um, I then studied at art school, studied film and video in Atlanta,
Okay.
Georgia, and yeah, my career kind of did this
Yeah.
until here we are, and I still feel like it's doing this. Um, but it combines a lot of my loves together, and now, especially with
Yeah.
Appian Media, I'm able to combine my creative aspirations with my faith
Yes.
and use both of those together, which I think is such a blessing.
That's awesome. So I saw that your videos have been viewed like 10 million times or something, like millions of times. What
Yes.
kind of responses are you getting from people that have
Yeah,
watched?
it's been such a blessing. I don't think that Stuart and I can confidently say that Stuart and I, neither of us had the idea that it would become what it has become.
Yeah.
And in the first few years of the release of Especially Following Messiah, we made a decision not to put it on YouTube. It was just on our website and people could view it from there. Um, but the moment we kind of collectively changed our approach where we said, listen, it's free, it needs to be free, and we need to put our stuff where people are already gathering. We need to
Yeah.
put it in the public squares where people are already gathering. Well, they're gathering on YouTube,
Yep.
they're gathering on social media. And so then we started to put it out on YouTube and Facebook and other places. And that is when we saw steady growth, but
Yeah.
especially around COVID. Churches were shut
Yeah.
down. People were desperately looking for content to fill their Bible classes and their worship services. And wouldn't you know, we've been creating this content for 3 or 4 years prior to that. We already
Yeah.
had a library. And that just saw just an incredible increase of traffic. At least on YouTube, I think we're up to 13 or 14 million views at this
Wow.
point. And I have the blessing, mostly it's a blessing, of fielding a lot of the comments that come in on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And by and large, they are comments very similar to the ones you've already made.
Yeah.
Like, I thank you for bringing the Bible to life.
Yes.
Thank you for helping us see the Bible in a way that we hadn't seen before. The Bible is living and active, and
Yes.
it's incredible. It doesn't necessarily need our help.
Right.
Um, but I understand what they mean. Like, I've been reading it, our imaginations have been engaged in creating images, but now that I've seen the real places, it's re-engaged and
Yeah.
reactivated. And that has been our mission from the very beginning. Um, we do have a lot of, good questions come up.
Yeah.
We are students of the Bible just like everyone else. We don't claim to have all the answers, and we encourage good questions. And so it's kind of fun to engage with people on our YouTube channel, asking those questions. And by and large, our responses tend to be, get back in the book.
Right.
The book has the answers, study it more. It is in there. Consider these passages, and put the book on your lap, open a map on the other one,
Right.
tune into the videos, and hopefully that helps really enhance your study.
That's awesome. I love what y'all are doing. I think it's so important. And it's so needed. It is much needed. My husband told me to ask you where you think the real, like the tomb that Jesus was buried in, because I know there's two different places that they think
Yes.
it could be. Where do you think it is?
Oh, all right. Well, for those who've enjoyed the podcast so far, they can go ahead and stop now, and they
Right.
can, because this is probably gonna alienate a
Controversial.
few. Um, so before I answer the question, I'll just say this. We try very diligently, and
Right.
it's part of our mission statement,
Yeah.
biblically accurate, which
Right.
we mean historically, right?
Yeah.
Geographically, historically, culturally accurate. And so, how do you weigh those things?
Hmm.
Questions like, where was Jesus buried? Where was he crucified? Where's Mount Sinai? Where did they
Yeah.
cross? The internet is full of
Yes.
things. Our first recommendation is, like I said, go to the text
Yeah.
and go to sound historical sources.
Hmm.
I hate to break it to you, but YouTube isn't one. It isn't
Right.
one. It is an open market. It's an open public square. And
Right.
so sound biblical sources. I would say one of the things that has helped our team differentiate between those two sites. So you've got one, and we show it in the video.
Yeah.
Currently, there's structure on top of it and has been
Right.
for hundreds of years. They call it the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Hmm.
And it was built on top of what has been established was a garden area, and
Hmm.
there's a first century tomb there. You can hardly even picture it now because the structure is there, but it was there, and historically accurate documents and
Right.
accounts prove that it was it Jesus's.
Right.
How to differentiate that between the other site, which is not far from there, and they call it the Garden Tomb.
Hmm.
Um, when you look at the scripture and the gospel accounts, it specifically says of Joseph of Arimathea. That's where Jesus was
Hmm.
buried, in Joseph's tomb, which was an incredible gift of this man, right?
Right.
He came after Jesus passed and gave up his own family tomb. The scriptures say that it was a new tomb in which
Mm.
no one had ever been buried.
Yeah.
So, whatever tomb it was, it had to have been dated around the first century
Yeah.
and not used before. And the Garden Tomb does not meet that criteria.
Right.
It was significantly older. In fact, it was hundreds of years older than the first century.
Yeah.
And the idea that that tomb remained unused and empty for hundreds of years before Joseph, it doesn't match.
Right.
And in fact, when you go to that location here in Israel, the people who take care of that site, which you can visit, tourists do,
Yeah.
they don't even make the claim
Yeah.
that it was Jesus' tomb. Now they don't mind that people come and consider Jesus' death and burial, but even they themselves are very careful. They don't
Yeah.
make that claim. To me, the biblical text really does kind of exclude that from being
Right.
a site. And we do try to address in the video. There are some say, well, it can't be the Church of the Holy Sepulchre because it wasn't outside of the city. When you look at Jerusalem, it's inside the
Yeah.
city. Well, we do talk about that. During the first century, it was, in fact, that location was outside of what was the city walls at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and those are fun. Those are fun
Right.
debates. And I say they are fun
Right.
debates
I
to
mean, it
talk
doesn't
about.
matter.
And that's the point.
He's
That's the
not there
point.
anymore, so it
He's
doesn't
not
matter.
there anymore, right?
Right.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. The body's gone.
That's right.
Um, he's alive.
Yeah.
And we do try to tread carefully because we could get into endless debate, and people do. YouTube is
Right.
full of it.
Right.
Um, but we don't want to distract from, listen, if God had really wanted us to know with absolute certainty the
Right.
exact location, he would have
There'd
given
be
us the
no
GPS
question.
coordinates in the
Sure.
Gospels. But what he did want us to know was what happened at that place,
Yeah.
and that the body was not found and Jesus was raised. And so we try hard to not completely ignore, um, but spend some time to address. We do that when our team went to Mount Sinai, or
Yeah.
one of the proposed locations of Mount Sinai,
Yes.
where we said, listen, there are several, there's more than two. There's some people say there's almost a dozen different sites that it
Yeah.
could be. And here they are. Let's consider these, but we're not gonna spend a lot of time talking about that. We're going to spend most of our time talking about what happened on the mountain.
Right.
And that's really been our approach. Um, we encourage healthy polite debate on our
Yes.
YouTube channels. And I think we do mostly see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is up next for
Ooh,
Epi Media?
great question. Barry continues to say, the Bible doesn't have, 5 or 6 stories to tell. It's got 500
Right.
stories to tell.
Right.
There's no shortage of source material. From the time that we finished following the Messiah, 2 of the most requested subjects that we got were the Exodus
Yeah.
and the Acts, the journeys of
Yeah.
Paul. And we finally tackled the Exodus, and finished that last year. I can say it was the most difficult thing we've ever done,
Wow.
for a variety of reasons, and you'll see that when you watch the videos.
Yeah.
Um, the Acts will likely be significantly more challenging.
Yeah.
I usually joke with people like, "You're asking for the Acts, but have you looked at a map recently? Like, you know where Paul went?"
Right.
Um, but that's our goal. Our goal
Yeah.
is to, Lord willing, launch a fundraiser later this year, and if all goes well, take the first production trip in the fall,
Yeah.
because it's going to require at least 2
Oh yeah.
to cover that book. And the exciting part about that is not only will it allow us to do the book of Acts, but many of the epistles were being written at the same time. And
Yeah.
so we believe that we will be able to capture the necessary content to essentially finish the rest of the New Testament
Wow.
over the course of years. And
Yeah.
so we hope to begin that effort, Lord willing, later this year.
That's amazing. How long does it take when y'all go? And I know there are different kinds of trips. So
Yes.
this one, that one will be very different than what you've done before. But how long does it, like weeks? Do you go for a month? Like how
No,
long?
typically we travel for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that's usually 14, 15 days. We are usually shooting video for 12 or 13 days, and they
Wow.
are 12 to 14-hour days.
Wow.
Often they start before sunrise. Many
Yeah.
days they finish after sunset. Um, and we've got a dedicated, very talented team. We've used a variety of talented people over the years, and most of them have come back. We haven't scared them enough. You know, they're like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that thing again.
Yeah.
Um, but we're usually talking about a team of 6 to 8 people,
Yeah.
for about 2 weeks at a time. And that's enough to produce, typically about 2 hours of finished content.
Wow. That's a lot of work. I'm glad
Yes, it
you're
is.
doing it, but it's a lot of work.
We are. I'm thankful to be doing it.
Yeah.
My wife is so gracious. We've got 3 kids at home, and so she holds down the fort while I'm away.
Yeah.
And I have told her, I'd love to take you and
Yes.
see some of these places, but I don't want you coming on a production trip.
Oh no.
That's
No.
too hard. Let's do like
Yes.
one of Barry's tours by all means.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's in our future.
Good.
Um, Numerous people will say, "I'd love to come with you on a trip." It's like,
Yeah.
actually, you wouldn't.
Not this one.
You wouldn't. But we are blessed and thankful, and it is. I mean, it's a life-changing experience for sure. There are 2 things I'm very passionate about, and we've
Okay.
spent most of the podcast talking about that, using our talents
Right.
to the glory of God. Not everyone has these particular talents. That's
Right.
okay. They have many others that I don't
Sure.
have at all, and so I always try to encourage people, find out what it is that you're talented with
Yeah.
and use it for the glory of God. And it's not going to look like everyone else's, but there's
Right.
something you can be doing, and doing that for the glory of God. I do also encourage people, because it's something that I didn't have 20 years ago when I was, well, sorry, 25 years ago now, that I first started expressing an interest in this, is for those that are interested in this particular skill set
Hmm.
and want to communicate good, godly Christian, morals through
Right.
creative means. I'd love for them to reach out. I always encourage people to, I'll
That's
do my
great.
best to respond to questions. I did have someone, I think it was just the other day, said, "Can you teach us what you know so
Oh
that we
gosh.
can do it?" It's like, I can tell you how I learned.
Right.
They were actually calling from South Africa. I was communicating
Wow.
with people. It's like I can't go over there and do that as much as I would love to
Yeah.
do that. But there are countless resources now that
Hmm.
were not available. Um, I don't even advocate that everyone has to go to film school per se. There are
Right.
ways to learn and hone this craft. And so I'm always so fascinated to talk to people who are expressing an interest in this. In fact, a lot of the people that we have brought on our team for these trips
Yeah.
are people that typically started out with conversations like that. So by all
Wow.
means, I'd love to talk with you.
That's awesome. Well, I hope they do. I hope they will, because we need more stuff like this. This is great.
That's right.
Well, I
That's right.
appreciate you being a guest today. I've loved learning more about what you're doing, and we will keep watching
Oh, I
all the
appreciate
new
it. Thank
things.
you.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be in touch when this is edited, and I'll let you watch ahead of time if there's anything that needs to be changed or
Oh, that's
taken
perfect.
out or whatever. So,
Yeah.
alrighty.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.